Stop humming this here, everything done changed. That warp tool made you open your brain. Eric Vanek is here, so remember the name. He got the waiver wire for the week. Tell you who to start and who to give a seat. Dropping the podcast every week. You know the knowledge is elite. After the show, we gon' hold a Lombardi. Celebrating like we throwing a party. This the blueprint and I know they gon' copy. Harmon intros always go the hardest, cause this is America's game.
Hey everybody, welcome back to America's Game, episode number 37. I'm your host Eric Vanek, and you can find me on Twitter at Eric Vanek NFL. And I am joined by Michael again this week. What's going on, Mike?
What's happening, man? We're recording this one at night, man, so it's a little bit different. I get to have a drink, a little nightcap.
Yeah, you get a 60 milligram in you.
Yeah, I'm a DJ though. If I do this at in the afternoon on Wednesdays when we normally record.
Right,
First thing I do, get off work, come home, start drinking.
Hey, I mean, it's a lifestyle, man.
My wife would kill me. She'd murder me. You drunk already? Yeah.
I'm sure she would murder you for a lot worse than that.
That's true. I've probably done a lot worse.
Exactly. Oh, man. So, first thing I want to start off with here, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, since we had recorded the show a little earlier, was the Stefon Diggs trade. So, I mean, it's been beat to death kind of everywhere, so we won't go over it for 35 minutes, hopefully. But just what were your quick thoughts on the whole Stefon Diggs trade and how it affects Houston and how it affects Buffalo?
Really stinks for the Houston weapons, right? Like, I was starting to come around and buy into a little more Nico and a little more Tank Dell, and it's like, oh, damn it.
Right.
Why? It's fun for CJ Stroud. Kill Dalton Schultz. We could put him in a body bag, If he finishes as a tight end one, it'll be a good season, which ain't saying much,
If he finishes a tight end one, that means the other three got fucking hurt.
Exactly good for CJ Stroud. Yeah. Probably the biggest one, and it's not really a fantasy thing, takeaway. I was just kind of just in awe that how badly Buffalo really wanted to get rid of Diggs. Right, the return wasn't amazing, and they're paying him a shit ton of money just to get off their team. So it's like, right. What was going on there? We always thought it was bullshit, just behind the scenes, right? He's acting up on the sideline or whatever. Looks like maybe he's got a little beef with Josh Allen, but they'll be fine. They're best friends. Apparently not.
Well, it sounded like. I don't know if maybe you've read more or seen more. It sounded like it was more McDermott and Diggs than it was Josh Allen and Diggs.
Ooh, man. Yeah, well, I guess that's saying something then.
Yeah. From what I saw and read, it sounded like Diggs did not like McDermott at all.
I can see that one.
I think Josh Allen was the one trying to hey, just stick with me here for a little bit. Fuck him. Me and you'll just do it. And,
to be the peacemaker.
Yeah.
So that'd be an interesting dynamic too then if, Josh Allen and Diggs are still really good friends for him to send away his friend, man. Because Josh Allen is that team, man. Face of the franchise. Listen, I don't give a fuck if you're Sean McDermott. You ain't won a Super Bowl, so you don't have that kind of clout. Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire fucking league. So
right.
Yeah. McDermott will be gone long from Buffalo before Josh Allen will.
Yeah. So I agree with you that this definitely helps out Stroud. He's gonna be he was already in the top 5 of Dynasty quarterbacks pretty much anyways, and I think that keeps him obviously right there. Am I going to take him as quarterback 1? No. I'm still going to take the rushing quarterbacks before him.
Smart man.
Yeah. And then, obviously adding Diggs and Nico and Tank, basically one of them's going to get hurt. Depends on who it's going to be.
Somebody.
I'm going to assume maybe Tank Dell is just a little bit slow to get back from the leg, and that's kind of where I'm going. I'd go, if I had to pick the third one out of those 3, it's going to be Tank Dell. So I would go, Nico and Diggs, probably Nico first, then Diggs, then Tank Dell would probably be how I think it's going to finish this year. But once Tank gets healthy, it could change. Diggs could be just completely gone at the end of the year anyways. This could just be a 1-year thing, see how it works out. And then obviously they got Joe Mixon. Their offensive line's pretty solid. They signed Schultz. it's hard to argue that this isn't a top 5 offense in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
They went from bottom of the fucking basement to fucking top 5 offense in 2 years. It's pretty incredible what the GM has done there. His name escapes me at the moment. But yeah, he's really done a good job there. Obviously, got Stroud traded up for Will Anderson too. Will Anderson's been really good for them. So, D'Amico Ryans has been a hell of a coach. So yeah, they're looking up here. And then for Buffalo's side, man, does this knock Josh Allen out of quarterback 1 for you?
No.
No. Okay.
No, sorry, I was so fast. But no, he's still QB1 for me.
I just don't know who the fuck they're throwing the ball to. I mean, yeah, you got Kurt. Yep. You got Curtis. You don't have an alpha. I don't even know if you have a B. I think you got a bunch of C's.
A lot of his
Samuel, Shakir.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have a shot here to go ahead and draft, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, whoever they want there at the end. But I still don't see any of those guys as a 1. I think there are 2s at best.
Before Stefon Diggs, Josh Allen was still a QB1. He finished QB11 before Diggs. That's his second year where we had a lot of question marks, right? The turnovers were abundant and throwing mechanics, accuracy, all that stuff was terrible, right? You're talking about a guy at the time who was 58% on his completion percentage finishing that sophomore year in the NFL.
Right.
They got Diggs. That was a big boost, right? Not to take away anything, but Josh Allen also did a fantastic job of cleaning up his mechanics, and he jumped 10% in completion percentage going into his third year, up to 68%. And once he hit that, he's been like a perennial 25, 24 point fantasy point per game scorer at the quarterback position. So,
yeah,
I think whoever they get, obviously the rookie probably isn't going to be as good as Stefon Diggs, but we've also seen Stefon Diggs fade twice now the last couple years. I know the first time it was Josh Allen's elbow, so if you wanted to make that. Second time they did play a murderer's row, basically of a schedule of number 1 corners. They had that kind of offensive change too, but it was for the better. The offense was more efficient, but as long as Josh Allen's still a 700-yard, 10-touchdown threat on the ground, like that's my QB1. You could probably make a case. I wouldn't fight you for Jalen Hurts, but anybody else.
Yeah, that's who I had as my number 2 is Jalen Hurts still. I think I would move Jalen above him right now just because they don't have that guy. Yeah.
Or if you wanted to be safer and go the Patrick Mahomes route because he just carries that being Patrick Mahomes thing. But I'm not going to knock him out of tier 1 ever.
I think I would. I think I could. I think right now I feel comfortable maybe moving him down to 2 or 3 like you said.
Yep.
But it's still in tier 1, so.
It's still some guy that I'm going to want on every one of my teams, right? I'm not going to be mad that I have Josh Allen.
I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on Kincaid because he's really the only, guy there now that could sit in the zones and do kind of what like Kelsey does a little bit. So we'll see how that works out for them. They're going to have to draft a receiver or 2 or 3 or 4 in this draft and see what happens.
Throw a bunch at the wall, see what happens.
But the thing is too, like that whole defense is completely gone. 2 safeties gone. Tre'Davious White gone. Tremaine Edmonds from last year gone. Matt Milano coming off of a bad injury. Leonard Floyd was gone. Leonard Floyd. They had Von Miller they brought back for whatever fucking reason. And they lost a bunch of they just lost a bunch of guys. They lost their center. They cut their center, and they were so over the cap, so they had to get rid of a lot of these guys and bring them back. So this team has a shit ton of holes. If I'm them, I would trade back from their 28th pick and just pick up a bunch more picks, man. Like get me a second, a 4th, and a 7th or something like that to move back. Just take some extra swings there. That's kind of how I would do Buffalo. I think they're kind of in the rebuild mode, and I don't think, I don't know. Even with Josh Allen, I think Miami's definitely better now. Jets still have a really good defense. If their offense comes around, I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets can beat Buffalo this year, and obviously New England's rebuilding. So
Right.
I don't know if they make the playoffs now, which is kind of sad. Just because, and it's not just because of Diggs; it's because of the whole thing of they had to cut pretty much everybody. So, gonna be a tough year for Buffalo, I think.
I wonder if this is just going to be their retooling year, right?
Yeah.
We kind of sit back, take our lumps, and then we try to make a big run for it in 25 when everything
Yeah.
looks a little bit more rosy and you start getting some of these numbers, right? That was it 31 mil that they owe Stefon Diggs that counts against the cap this year, comes off the
Yeah.
books next year. So they just ate it all up front instead of
Yep.
spreading it out over multiple years.
Yep. And the way the NFL's going, the fucking cap will go up another 25 mil probably
It
too.
should be 350
So-
mil next year, something like
Yeah,
that.
something crazy. Yeah, it'd be one baseball contract. It'd be one Otani contract. It'll be the fucking.
So right now they're projected to have about 30 mil in cap space already for 2025. So not a massive amount, right? We saw teams with 70, 80, 90 mil this year heading into this year, but
Yeah.
a decent amount. I could see them retooling. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the wide receiver position, though, if it's actually a rookie or, like you said, if, I wouldn't be shocked if they forego it completely and they're just like, we're going to fucking trot Khalil Shakir, Justin Shorter, and Curtis Samuel, and Dalton Kincaid. This is it. That's what we got.
Yeah, that'd be a big woof. But
Would be.
Curtis Samuel did have his best year under Joe Brady.
So maybe he does again.
He's gonna have to. He's gonna have
Curtis Samuel, wide receiver one. Let's go.
125 catches, 850 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Because it's all underneath bullshit.
A 5-yard 8 out.
Yeah, that'd probably be less than that. All right.
Negative.
Yeah. All right. So this episode, we are going to go over our wide receiver and tight end prospect rankings for the 2024 draft. Only like 2 weeks, 3 weeks away, whatever it is now. Getting closer and closer. Tomorrow, we're recording this on Tuesday night, the 9th. Tomorrow is the 10th. It is Christmas Day. Dane Brugler's draft guide comes out, so I'm looking forward to diving balls deep into that tomorrow morning, so that'll be nice. So yeah, let's get into it, man. We'll start with the sexy position, the wide receivers in this class. Me and you pretty much have the same rankings at the top. You have Marvin Harrison just in tier 1, and then Odunze Neighbors tier 2. I have all 3 in my eggplant tier. Tier
Eggplant.
1, Marvin. Oh yeah, just as soon as you see him, you get a hard on. Fucking Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. I think all 3 of them are going to be elite in the NFL. I don't see either of these guys being a bust. Like maybe one of them doesn't hit to like this top 15, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL type level, but I think these are 3 really, really good prospects.
Yeah, pretty awesome, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
I think all of them would have a case. That is including Dunze. So let me just be clear. All of them would have a case in multiple previous classes to be wide receiver 1.
Absolutely. Yep.
All of them. I mean, we're talking about, Chase. The Chase class. Yes. Like, Dunze would be in that consideration, too.
Yeah.
Would be. He was absolutely phenomenal. The reception perception kind of sealed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was good before the combine. He comes out, only receiver out of those big 3 to work out at the combine. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Then reception perception comes out, and it's like, yeah, this guy just don't miss on anything. Doesn't matter the route. He's good at everything. And you're like, okay, all right, well, we just locked this one in. I think he's pretty awesome. He's probably the one, though, that I have the most concerns about for draft capital, like where it ends up. Like, I don't really have a good feel of where NFL teams are at on Odunze. We've been fed information. Obviously, we know how good Marv is, and then, you've heard the things about Neighbors might be wide receiver 1 on some people's boards. You haven't really heard that about Odunze, so probably the one that I'm a little bit more like, could it be like a teens pick instead of top 10? Like, it's a possibility. I don't think so, but could happen.
I think I'm pretty much locked into the top 10 on these guys.
It feels like everybody should be,
Yeah.
but I could see it. I could see maybe he slips to 13 or something like that, 14.
Right. I could see it. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility because The offensive tackle class is really, really good too, and a lot
Yeah.
of teams need offensive tackles. So I could see if some team prioritizes the offensive tackles more, I could see maybe Odunze slips to 12 or 13, like you're saying. So I could see that, but me personally, I think they're all going to be top 10 picks. Like I think Arizona, they should be lined up there for Marvin Harrison Jr. They took Paris Campbell last year in the first round, so they know this Ohio State program. Obviously, they're watching Paris Campbell tape. You're going to watch Marvin Harrison tape from last year too. So they know how good this guy is. They don't have a number one wide receiver. They need it. The Chargers at 5. They could definitely take, Neighbors or Dunze, but I think they're probably going to lean offensive tackle just the way that Harbaugh likes to build his teams. I think they're going to go offensive tackle, even though they could definitely use the wide receiver. But I'm not ruling it out. The Giants could use a wide receiver, but are they in the quarterback market too? They're all over the place. 7, we got who's at 7 again?
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee, that's right. Yeah, they're
Doesn't feel like a prime wide receiver spot anymore after the Ridley signing.
no, and I think they're going to probably have to either, if Joe Alt's there, that's the pick. But I kind of think the Chargers are going to take Alt, and Tennessee, maybe they could, if Minnesota wants to move up for a quarterback or something, they could be the trade back spot there to them. You could still get an offensive tackle at 11, or unless they want to take the offensive tackle there at 2, or the second offensive tackle if Alt goes.
I think
Atlanta,
maybe Fashanu might be in consideration too at 7. He's pretty awesome too.
yeah, and you have the best offensive line coach in the league. Like, he can mold anybody. Like, I kind of think, too, like, Tennessee, if they did trade back with, like, Minnesota or whatever to 11, why not, like, if Amarius Mims is this fucking Greek god that just big ball of clay that needs molded, like, Brian Callahan is your guy. Like, I could see if the Titans wanted to load up and get a bunch of draft picks and move back from 7 to 11, and then let's say they move back again to 18 at the Bengals or something. If Bengals want to move up for Brock Bowers or something crazy, they could do that and draft like Amarius Mims there. That's a big ball of clay that Bill Callahan can mold, man. He would be
emphasis on big.
Yeah,
he's a huge dude.
Huge dude, yeah. And even any of these other offensive tackles, like the Washington kid's been getting a lot of buzz because he could play 5 spots.
Super athletic too, ridiculously
Graham Barton's
athletic.
been getting a shit ton of buzz lately too, so I could see that. And then 8, Atlanta, I could definitely see them taking a wide receiver. I mean, they shouldn't. They should probably take the best pass rusher in the draft, but they got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan, like their second receiver. Darnell Mooney's solid, but he's not Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors or whoever. So
that actually happened last night, which was nuts in the mock draft show that I did. So we've been doing just divisions, right? So we did the AFC and NFC South last night. So just 8 teams. We let the computer pick for the other ones. Neighbors and Odunze both went before Marv in the draft, and then you had the tackles and some quarterbacks in there. So I'm up picking for the Falcons at pick 8. And who's sitting there on the board at pick 8? None other than Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, you want to talk about eggplant. Kirk Cousins, Marv, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan. Like, a good offensive line.
That's like the Devi fucking wet dream for the last 4 years. Right there.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen, all right? So don't get crazy, but I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Never thought of this scenario. Marv in Atlanta.
Right. So I wouldn't rule out Atlanta, and then obviously Bears at 9, Jets at 10 are looking for a wide receiver too. So I think there's just a lot of teams that could use the wide receivers. I don't see any of those 3 getting out of that top 10. But you have Harrison 1. He's kind of I'd say the closest thing to Calvin Johnson that we've had since Calvin.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Complete prospect. I mean, there's nothing he can't do.
I comp him a little bit more to A.J. Green. So if you kind of think about the A.J. Green, Julio Jones draft class, that's kind of what these 3 all feel like those wide receivers. Not that I thought that A.J. I mean, almost everybody universally thought A.J. Green was a little bit better than Julio. So that was the number one. The reason he went higher in the draft too. But Julio was a hell of a prospect in his own right. So
Yeah.
I got Marv just a tier above, like just a separation, right?
Yeah.
I've heard the people say that, Neighbors is just as good. Just my personal preference, though, when I watched him on film, Marv just, it's a little bit more special. Just a little bit more. Like a
Yeah,
little more sudden in his movements, a little more refined in the route running. And then obviously you can't teach the fact that he's, 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
his
some
route
Neighbors
running-
just can't be. Like he's not going to grow 3 inches between now and the draft.
I've heard Daniel Jeremiah's comp for him has been Larry Fitzgerald.
Ooh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
So that's another good one there. I mean, you can't argue with that. Neighbors, I mean, I've heard some different comps on him. People have said, like Jalen Waddle. I think that's a decent one. Looking at this draft guide that I have up, Torrey Holt, I could definitely see Torrey Holt and Malik Neighbors. That's a good one.
My favorite comps for the big three, right? AJ Green for Marv feels really good. Which also is kind of funny because early on in the Marv, my comp for him was T. Higgins with speed. And AJ Green also a Bengal, T. Higgins also a Bengal. Bengals just feel like destiny for those guys. But Malik, really my favorite comp for him is actually just Jamar Chase. Like he has a lot of Jamar Chase in him. A lot of Jamar Chase. And then Dunze feels like Devontae Adams when I watch him play.
I've seen a lot of Devontae Adams comps for him. That's a good one too. This guide has Torrey Holt for the Neighbors, which I really like.
Okay, that's a good one too.
I love Torrey Holt from back in the day.
Kids don't remember Torrey Holt. He was the truth though.
This one's interesting. The Aroma Dunze one, they have Justin Blackmon.
Well, see, a lot of people won't know who Justin Blackmon is or know how good Justin Blackmon was. Justin Blackmon was a phenomenal prospect coming out. Phenomenal. And he went high in the draft, and he actually killed it his first year, right? His rookie year was really good.
Yeah.
Problem with Justin Blackmon is he had off-the-field concerns with drinking, and that's what ended his career, basically. But Justin Blackmon was no slouch, so it's not a bad comp either, because Justin Blackmon as a prospect was fucking amazing.
And then listening to a video before we started here on Rome, Allen Robinson was their comp, and if you look at like mock draftables, Allen Robinson's like one of the first 3 comps for him. So I like the Allen Robinson comp, and I also liked. They also said Des Bryant. I could definitely see some Des Bryant and Rome Odunze.
He's a much better route runner than Des.
Yeah, but like just physical. Like the only knock that I think you can have on Odunze compared to the other two is he's not like he's quick, but he's not like Neighbors and Harrison quick, where he always has that defender in his hip pocket, but he still gets open. He's so good at contested catches, fights through contact, all that bullshit. Odunze's fucking great at it. So these 3 are just top 3 level prospects for me. I don't have any problems.
Nope.
How you rank them? Either.
Yeah, I wouldn't care either. Rank them however you want. They're all good.
All right, your tier 3, you have Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy, and I have in my tier 2, I have it Brian Thomas Jr., Troy Franklin, Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, and Xavier Worthy are my top 8. So Thomas Jr., Franklin, Mitchell, McConkey, and Worthy. So we both have Brian Thomas Jr. I really like him too. I think he is the last of the guys, though, that could be a true number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm not going to rule out. I got Xavier Worthy in that tier 2, and I think he could do it as well. Okay. But as far as true number 1s, that kind of feels like the last, that tier 3 for me. That's why they're separated from Ladd. I love Ladd to death, too. Like, I got Ladd after in a tier of his own, but feels more like that, 1B type receiver as a ceiling at best, right? Like, more of like the Robert Woods to Cooper Kupp, back in those days, that kind of thing. Or the Cooper Kupp to Robert Woods, however you wanted to put it. But more of that kind where it's like, he's really, really good. He's just, if he went anywhere else, would he be the alpha if they, their next best receiver was Wan'Dale fucking Robinson?
Right.
Like, that's the only help he had. He had to face double teams all time. I don't know if you'd be really successful then.
Right. The comp they have for Brian Thomas Jr. on here is Roy Williams. I could definitely see that for Brian Thomas Jr.
For the speed, the over-the-top ability. As a prospect, Roy Williams as a prospect.
Yeah, I mean, both had relative same size, 6'4", 200, around that. Um, yeah, I mean Brian Thomas Jr. Man, he was really good on tape too. I mean, obviously that whole offense was great. Um, it is a little concerning that he was only the 1 year production. His other 2 years he didn't really do shit until last year. So that's always a little concerning for me. But I think everything on his testing and all that looked really good. I'm hoping that he can go to a spot like I'd feel more comfortable if I had him as my like stud number two, kind of like the Eagles. Devontae Smith
Yep.
is the stud number two. If Brian Thomas Jr. could get to a spot where he could be the stud number two, like he was with Neighbors, I think that would be the ideal spot for me for Brian Thomas Jr.
My count for him is more of a guy who was a number one at one time, was starting to become one, and it's DJ Chark. Now, good DJ Chark. Like, a lot of people remember DJ
Right.
Chark now,
Yeah.
but up until that ankle injury when James Robinson decided to, run over his fucking leg.
Right.
For Jacksonville, he was the number one and actually a really good fantasy producer. We made a goddamn song about him. Actually, the song was there before, but we just changed the name.
Right. And then Worthy, like you said, I don't. I think he'd be a really good number two as well. Obviously, the speed element of it. Their comparison for him on this is Jalen Waddle.
That's one I actually do agree with. And like a lot of people have Henry Ruggs, and I think that was a horrible one.
Yeah, I don't think Henry Ruggs. I think Worthy's a little bit better, but does have problems with catches and all that. He did have some drops last year, so hopefully he can get that cleaned up. I'm not gonna like completely hold that against him, but when you do watch him, like he doesn't have like this Tyreek Hill like kill you speed, like yes, it's there, but it's like not like how Tyreek uses it, and Deshaun
Yeah.
Jackson used it. Like they touch the ball and they're just gone every single time. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that in the NFL. Maybe it was just college with how spread out it is, that maybe that's the reason why he didn't get to show it off as much. But we'll see.
I think one thing people always get lost in is by 40 times, right? And you have to remember 40 yards is, damn near half a football field, people. Like
Right.
it's a good chunk. I will say the difference between like Xavier Worthy's speed is he's probably a little bit better on the top end.
Yeah.
And that's where like the 40 times kind of match up, and that's why you set the record. But definitely when you're watching them and you compare them to a guy like Deshaun Jackson or Tyreek Hill, I think their 10-yard is just so much faster. Like their quick burst acceleration is just a little bit better than Xavier Worthy, and that's why it looks a little different.
Yeah.
Like in the end, if they run 40 yards straight, right, Xavier Worthy would probably be there with those guys. If not, maybe outrun, maybe Deshaun or current day Tyreek. I don't know about prime Tyreek. I don't think anybody catching him, but
No.
I think it's just the quick burst is a little bit better from like a Deshaun. The lateral agility, same for Tyreek. They're just so sudden in their movements. But Xavier Worthy, no real slouch in that department. Definitely the best out of everybody else in this whole draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one up, Troy Franklin from Oregon. Their comp for him on this one's Chad Johnson, and there's no way he's Chad Johnson.
No.
Chad Johnson was elite route runner. This Troy Franklin is not an elite route runner, but he does have the speed, man. He's a quick guy. I'm trying to think of like a good. I don't want to say like Deshaun Jackson because he kind of plays like him, but he's bigger than that. He's 6'3". Deshaun Jackson was whatever.
What
5'8",
about this one?
5'9".
A little bit taller than Mike Wallace.
Okay, I can see that. That's a good one. I like that. Mike Wallace was good for a few years too.
Yes, he was.
He wasn't when he was with Pittsburgh there with Big Ben, and then after he left Pittsburgh, he wanted to chase the money and he sucked.
Yeah, he sucked after that, right? When he went to Miami, he was terrible.
Yeah, Miami. He was with Baltimore, I think, for a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, he wasn't good, but that's actually a good one. I like that one. I do like Troy Franklin though, man. He's not like I say, he's not an elite route runner, but I mean, the dude had 1,300 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns. Very explosive after the catch, man. Like if he can catch it in open field, obviously he can take it to the house any single time. But definitely a guy I don't think he can be a number one. I think he's going to have to be a number two, kind of like Devontae Smith kind of deal again. Kind of plays like Devontae Smith a little bit. Like obviously he's a little bigger, but he's not like he is smaller like Devontae Smith. He's in the 180s or whatever he's at. So
Yeah.
he is a little bit smaller, but he has a big frame. So he does have, if you can get in the weight room a little bit there, fucking put on 10, 15 pounds of muscle, like that's going to definitely help him too. So I am intrigued with him.
Right now he's got like that modern day Todd Pinkston build. Remember those chicken legs Todd Pinkston used to have?
Todd Stinkston. Yep. Got to remember those days. But yeah, man, I really like Troy Franklin. I think if he can get to like the bottom of the first round there and one of these Kansas Cities, I think even San Francisco, because they've always been looking for that speed guy. Any of those types of teams at the bottom there, even Buffalo, like if he got with Josh Allen, I'd love it. So I think if Troy Franklin can sneak there at the bottom of the first round there, I think that'd be one of the spots I'd like for him to land.
Came up last night, taking him in the second to Carolina because it gives them something different than what they already have in Deontay and Thielen and whatever the fuck Mingo is.
Yeah, if he falls out, I could see that. I could see. I really think I like the San Francisco count because I think they are going to be looking for wide receiver. Do they really want to play Brandon Ayuk all this money? There's talks of maybe a draft day trade for Brandon Ayuk. Who knows?
I would be over the moon if Ayuk got traded to Buffalo, and that was their answer.
Yeah, if he went
not
to
only
Buffalo,
for my Ayuk shares, but for my Josh Allen shares, for everybody.
I've heard the rumor about Pittsburgh has maybe a deal lined up for him.
Oh shit, that'd be spicy right there.
Yeah, trade out Deontay, swap him with Ayuk.
R.I.P. your Pickens. See ya.
I mean, if it's Russ though, he's just gonna launch it up to fucking Pickens no matter what. So I think
it's gonna end up being Fields. He's gonna have eyes for only Ayuk. just fucking around.
But yeah, I mean, if I could definitely see San Francisco being a team that nobody's really thinking about looking at a wide receiver there at the end of the first round because they've taken a couple shots on these fast wide receivers. Danny Gray was one I liked a couple years ago. He's just been fucking injured and can't stay on the field at all. So they've been looking for that speed element guy. And you look at what, obviously, McDaniel's done in Miami with these speed guys. Obviously Shanahan's had speed guys in the past, fucking Josh Gordon with the Browns that one year. Obviously Julio Jones he had with Atlanta. You could see what these guys can do. So I think taking one of these speed guys could possibly happen there for San Francisco.
Pierre Garçon back in Washington. He can move his ass too.
Yep, that's another one. Adonai Mitchell is up next. So they have George Pickens listed for him as a comp.
That feels good.
Yeah.
That does feel good.
Yeah, George Pickens is a good comp for AD. I do like. He is an X receiver, so he could be possibly a number one. Like if he went to Buffalo, he'd probably be their number one wide receiver. I don't know if I love it as him being the alpha. I think he would be another guy that should be a really solid 2. Is kind of where I land on Mitchell, but I like the prospect. I like, if you look at some of his analytics, there's some that are really, really good, and then there's some that are like, oh, that's not good.
He's a tough eval for me, really tough.
Yeah.
You look at the combine measurables, and you're fucking blown away.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, right? Brian Thomas Jr. stuff, right? Like that's why you get excited about BTJ. Some of the big games that he played in, right? The college football playoff showed up. Showed up and showed up.
Touchdown in every single playoff game he's played in.
And you love that. You love his ability to high point the football and be a contested catch guy and shows enough with separation. Like the difference between him and Keon Coleman is Adonai Mitchell has showed stuff on tape of being able to consistently separate. The biggest problem for me is, like you touched on, some of his analytics are like, whoa. Like usually these are red flags, big red flags, and they're kind of getting overlooked. And then when I put on the film and watch him, before he even came out and said it, it's like sometimes he's just not even interested. It doesn't even look like he's fucking trying. Quinn Ewers just throwing a ball where if Adonai's engaged, like this is a house call. Instead, he don't even know the football's coming his way. Like he's just out there like, I'm the number 2 or number 3 option. I don't give a fuck. Right? And that's pretty concerning when you watch that. I'm like, what's going on, man? Like this is big time college football, and you're just 60-70%. So the George Pickens comp is pretty good because you're is he kind of a head case too? Like is Is this a head case thing going on here? I don't know what to do with him. I think if he hits and he puts all this shit together, I mean, not a lot of guys down here where we talk about being true alphas, but he could be a true fucking alpha if he really put it together, or he could be out of the league in 3-4 years, and nobody fucking knows.
Contract, yeah. I mean, if you look at his stats, like I know some of these are from Georgia, but 2021, 29 catches, 426 yards, 4 touchdowns. That was with Georgia. 2022, 6 for 134, 3 touchdowns. He got hurt. And then last year with Texas, 55 for 845, 11 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's not terrible numbers, but he's not like blowing it up either. Definitely somebody I'm intrigued with, but I think that's a guy in fantasy drafts where I'm going to take him in a few select spots, but I'm not going to overload and have fucking 10, 80 Mitchell shares.
A lot of my plan was these pre-NFL drafts, Eric. We just wrapped them up a couple days ago. You're in some of these. I did 20 leagues. Adonai Mitchell's pretty solidly at the 110, 111, almost in every single league. That's where he was getting taken. I took a few shares myself, even though I have him ranked lower than maybe some other guys. But it's one of those things now, especially with Buffalo having that open spot. It's like, well, fucking Adonai goes at 28 to Buffalo. Like, the market is going to go ballistic on whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that you take him now, or maybe you take him right after the NFL draft if he falls to you and get your hands on some shares. But I think I'm probably more interested in seeing what I can move for that I feel a little bit more certain about, right? You probably still want a couple hanging around in your portfolio just in case, right? Let's see what happens with them. But definitely more of one that I'm like, draft now, trade later, if I can.
Yeah, pretty much. I agree with you. Just to kind of see what happens. Like if you had him pre-NFL draft, he lands at Buffalo, man, you could probably get a 2025 first and another receiver back probably. Could you get Darnell Mooney in a 2025 first?
I think that'd be almost all day, right? I was even thinking, trying to comprehend like what range I could end up in. You might be able to get like a Deontay in a 25 first.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
You might be able to shoot that high. Yeah. Lad McConkey, another guy that me and you both really, really like. So, everybody says, oh, he's Julian Edelman. No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Edelman. He is, for me, he kind of is like Adam Thielen. Because he can play outside, he can play the slot, he can play both spots, really good route runner. Just kind of like Adam Thielen is. Adam Thielen was really smooth. I haven't really heard that comp too much for him, but that's kind of where I thought about McConkey was like Adam Thielen type.
Adam Thielen with a much bigger profile coming in, right? Like a blue chip program.
Yeah.
What do you go to, like Minnesota State or something too?
Yeah,
wasn't even
like
Minnesota. It was like Minnesota State or some shit. Here's a couple comps, right? Athletic comps for Lad will blow you away. Because his athletic comps go to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson of most recent memory, right? But you look at this dorky-looking white kid, you're like, no way. That's his athletic comps. Like, they're almost a spitting image. Playstyle comps, though, here's one that I really like, and it's a ceiling one, right? So just bear with me. I understand it's a ceiling one, but Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I've heard that one, too.
I like the Antonio Brown one, just from a play style, the way it is, too. Now, if he can clean some stuff up, his biggest concern that I have with Lad doesn't have to do with route running, doesn't really have to do with a lot of contested catch stuff. It's just physicality, on press coverage, which in today's day and age, like how much press coverage are you actually seeing? Like how much press man are teams playing? A lot less than they used to in the past, but still, that's one of those things where if a defensive coordinator gets a hold of it and gets a hold of the game tape, they're like, oh, yeah, we're just going to press your ass all game. We can completely just eliminate you. So it's got to get a little bit better through that press, that physicality in his routes. And if he can clean it up, listen, I don't know if he could be a number one, but he can sure as fuck be a 1B for somebody because his in route and his out route are the nastiest in this fucking class. And good luck covering them.
Like, I think if he gets with a really good veteran quarterback, like, he could be like a Cooper Kupp type. Like, he could run those routes. He could do all that, get on that same page, go to breakfast with his quarterback.
There
like
you go,
Cooper and Matt do. Like, they could be really good buds, and he could smash. So, McConkey is a guy, I might take over, like, if I'm like don't want a shit ton of AD Mitchell, I don't want a shit ton of Xavier Worthy. I'll push the button on McConkey at 111, 112, whatever it is, and be okay with it. Especially if he gets this high draft capital that we're all thinking he might go. He might be one of those guys at the end of the first round or top of the second. So that's definitely a guy I'm very interested in. Really like McConkey and his
Big fan.
Yeah, he's gonna be one that I'm interested to see where he lands. All right, so let's go to our next tiers here. Tier 4 for you. You had McConkey. I'll go to your tier 5 as well. You had Xavier Legette, Donnie Mitchell, Troy Franklin, and Keon Coleman in your tier 5. And as I fuck up the thing here, there we go. My tier 3 is Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and then Devontae Walker. That's my top 15 there. So Xavier Legette, you had him high here. I have him leading off the tier 3. I think I have one share of him so far through my draft so far, and I think I might just be okay with it unless he just lands on like the absolute smash spot.
This is more, I'm in flag plant territory with him, especially where I rank him, because I have him above Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman's another guy that I really like, but everything that you know about analytics and data models and early breakouts and breakout age, like all them terms, right, do not fucking apply to Xavier Legette.
Yeah.
And that could be a very bad thing. It could be. But at wide receiver 7 prices for me, the early part of the second round is probably where you're looking at having to take this kind of guy. If he gets NFL draft capital, you would have to do it in pre-NFL drafts, which are going on right now. I'm comfortable with it in the flag plant because there's a few things he's got going for him that I am just like over the moon with, right? His production from this last season was outstanding on the South Carolina offense that wasn't super impressive outside of him. Spencer Rattler was just like, where's Xavier? That's where I'm throwing the fucking football. Everybody else can piss off. He is built like a fucking Adonis. I know he's only 6'1" if you want to give him that little bit when he was listed at 6'3", but he is still rocked up and put together like nobody's business. Different than Malachi Corley when we get down to him. Xavier Legette actually won this past year downfield with 13.7, I believe, was his ADOT. So, like, he is moving his ass downfield, putting up fucking ridiculous numbers at South Carolina in the SEC. But the analytics are all going to look bad for him for the simple fact that he is a fifth-year breakout, right? Did absolutely fuck all up until that point. This is one where me and DB were kind of going back and forth and talking about. And some of the context behind it is this was a high school quarterback. This was a guy who was running triple option in high school and not playing wide receiver. So didn't learn how to play wide receiver really until he got to college. And then it's going to take a few years when you haven't done it at all, right? You're doing that transition. Now, we've seen some guys make the transition pretty fast. It was slower for him, but at least he contributed on the team. It wasn't like he was a fucking healthy scratch. He's out there on special teams, leading up to that point. But I love his build. I love his athleticism, which is off the charts. Love his voice. If you haven't heard him talk, please.
No, I haven't heard that yet.
Oh my gosh, Eric. You're in for a treat when you pull that one up. Listen to it as Xavier Legette interview.
Is he like fucking Patrick Mahomes' Kermit?
Nope, but better. better. He's got the most southern accent that I think you're ever going to hear, man. The most southern accent you're ever going to hear. You wouldn't expect it out of a guy who looks like that. So,
right.
Kind of a flag plant one. And, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll take my lumps. But I'm kind of hoping I'm right. And I don't know. I just got a feeling about the guy. So,
yeah. One of the comps I have heard is DK Metcalf.
Oh, that's not bad. He's a little bit shorter, but yeah.
Yeah.
They're put together about the same. I'm sure he's got pretty similar abs.
Yeah. Can, limited route tree. He can go down the ball, down the field and go get it like DK can, like when DK came in. And now DK has obviously learned some routes and stuff at the NFL level, so it's not like he didn't learn them. Legette definitely has a chance to do that himself. It's just a guy that I see the talent, like that one play that everyone posts, where he just takes it and just fucking goes, man. He's like
Yeah.
got like a 40-yard gap
Yeah,
on everybody.
he like rips the ball out of the dude's hands and then
Yeah.
just runs away from everybody.
Splits like 3 guys and they had no chance. Like insane play of just seeing his acceleration. So there is glimpses of that on his film. Man, the one thing that I don't even know if this is true. So I've heard he had some off-field stuff issues in his past. I don't know, some stuff that's happened in his life or
I
whatever.
haven't heard anything about that, but
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of waiting for Dane Brugler's guide, because he gets into all that stuff and you learn about these prospects a little bit more. So I'm waiting to look at that tomorrow, because I've heard it on a few shows and they don't like talk about it. So I don't know, want to speculate what it was. So, so he's had some stuff that's gone on in his life. The one thing in this guide that they talk about that gives me pause on him, it says the biggest question is, where has this been? For a fifth-year player to break out at this level and look so impressive in doing so is incredibly rare. Leggett admits he struggled for much of his college career with work ethic and developing as a wide receiver at the SEC level. Coaches praised a change of attitude leading into 2023. So kind of like that statement just gives me a little bit of pause, like it took you to the 5th year to finally say, okay, I want to do something now. Like, that gives me a little pause. It gives me, like, obviously the 1-year production stuff gives you Kevin White vibes from back in the day. Because that was him all at West Virginia. He had one big year. He was fucking terrible in the NFL. Stuck around for like 17 years, it seemed like, but he was still terrible. Anyways, it kind of gives me those kind of vibes on him. So that's why I'm okay pressing the brakes on him a little bit. Like, I'll take a shot here or there in a couple leagues on him, but I'm not going to go crazy spending every first-round pick on him if he goes to, like, fucking Buffalo or Kansas City or whatever. Yeah, it's a great spot, but maybe I'll take him just because he's going to be so overvalued if he goes to one of those teams. But if he goes to, like, Carolina, let's say, at the top of the second, like, that's a spot where I'll be like, I'll buy in another league when I do another 17th startup next year, That's kind of where I'm at with them.
Yeah, some of it I always try to remember, too. I mean, we're talking about kids in their 20s,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of these guys really fucking stink when it comes to life choices and work ethic and everything else. And I think about where I'm at, right now and where I was in my 20s. And even now I'm still not good. But I can tell you in my 20s, I was a real piece of shit for most of the 20s. So I'm not going to put it past a kid to finally go, you know what? Fuck. Like, I've wasted 4 years here doing absolutely nothing. I've had this grand illusion of, like, I'm going to the pros and I'm going to do this. And I can't even get on the fucking field as a wide receiver. Like, you know what? Fuck that. This is my last opportunity. I'm going to make it count. And by all accounts, at least for 2023, nobody on that fucking team worked their ass off as much as Xavier Leggett. So I do think the concern is warranted. And could he regress back to, like, the don't give a shit when you get to the NFL and you start to get some money? Yeah, you could. I could see that happening too, but maybe this is, like, here to stay, right? Like, DK Metcalf, for example, like, nobody really knew who the fuck DK Metcalf was until his, final year in college. Right?
Right.
And, I don't know. I just love the kid. I love him to death. Love him to death. I love everything about him. Size, speed, athleticism, the work ethic stories, the 5th-year breakout story, from a guy who was a fucking special teamer. It's from a guy who played quarterback in high school and didn't even know how to fucking play wide receivers. So, I don't know. My flag plant, and I'm willing to be wrong on it.
Yeah. I mean, we all have those guys. Like, a couple years ago, I had that on Jameson Williams. I mean, obviously the injuries have kind of sucked, and he hasn't really hit yet. But we all have those guys, so I'm not going to blame you on that. I see it, too. Like, it's not like I don't see it. I'm not completely, fucking Stevie Wonder over here towards them, so I can definitely see the appeal in them for sure. Next one up, man, this is one that I like a lot. I actually moved him up a couple spots today. Ricky Pearsall from Florida. if I had to fucking give this guy a nickname, it's Dr. Smooth. Because this dude's a fucking smooth operator for sure. He's fucking, with his route running, catching, all that, man, he is going to be a really good player in the NFL. I really like this kid.
That's a guy I have ranked lower that shouldn't be lower, right? A
Right.
lot of once I get past wide receiver 10, like I've done my most amount of work on wide receivers 1 through 10.
Yeah.
I've got to watch a lot of Jalen Polk tape. I've got to watch a lot of Jalen McMillan tape just by proxy from watching Adunze and watching Michael Penix and watching Washington. Brendan Rice, like you get to watch that tape when you watch USC and, Marshawn Lloyd and Caleb Williams, those kind of guys. So you get a good feel for him. Ricky Pearsall, though, is one that, who the fuck else at Florida am I going to go watch tape other than Ricky Pearsall? Right? Nobody.
Right.
There's not a fucking person on that team.
Etienne's brother, then he left.
Yeah, and he's on Georgia now getting DUIs.
Yeah.
But I listen, everybody who's watched Pearsall seems to come away very, very impressed with him. And the athletic numbers were off the fucking charts for that guy. And then you already knew about it if you're any kind of a sports fan. This dude was a walking Sports Center top 10 highlight reel as far as these ridiculous one-handed catches. So, I mean, what's not to like about him, right? We got a second wide receiver in here to go with the white corner and Cooper DeJean. This is good, man. We're coming back. We got a chance, buddy.
Yeah.
Tory Taylor, Iowa punter, won't be our last hope.
So this is another guy that I kind of compare to Cooper Kupp too. The route running, like he is an elite route runner, probably one of the best in the class. I'd put him up there with the the Odunzes, the Harrisons as far as route running goes. Really good, catching the ball, tracking the ball, all that good stuff, man. He could definitely be like the Cooper Kupp guy. I think he's going in the second round for sure. Someone's going to stab him in the second round. Okay. I think I've heard. I think it was Pearsall, but I'm not 100% sure. But I heard a Christian Kirk comp on him, I think, or it was somebody else I was thinking of. But either way, I think that could be a guy because that's a good slot. He can go down the field and go get it. So yeah, Pearsall is one that I'm definitely high on for sure.
So our rookie ADP had him for all these pre-NFL drafts. Now, mind you, this ADP only tracks real drafts, not fucking mock drafts, right? Real league rookie drafts. He's got an ADP of 301. Too low?
Too low.
Too low?
Especially when he gets drafted in the middle of the second to somebody. He's going to shoot up.
That second round is tough, man. Second round is tough. I'm going Jatavian Sanders. Jatavian Sanders, you could probably make a case just because it's a tight end over.
Yeah.
But Braylon Allen's the 211. Roman Wilson comes at 210, another wide receiver. Yep. Jalen Wright and Xavier Legette, who I just talked glowing about, is the 208. Blake Corum at the 207. Man, that second round is pretty fucking good this year, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you even mentioned Brooks and Trey Benson. Yep. The rest of these wide receivers that we already talked about are going to fall into that range too. Ooh. Bo Nix and Penix are going to fall into this range. I'm starting to think, I don't think it's crazy the way that these guys, Nix and Penix, have been getting talked up the last couple of days that they might be going in the first round. It could be fucking Oakland or Vegas and Denver sitting there at 12 and 13, and they missed out on the top 4, and they just take Penix and fucking Nix.
So hypothetically, say it was even money right now, even money, and the over/under's 4.5 quarterbacks in the first round. Are you taking the over?
I would probably still take the under. I think it's going to be 4 if I had to put money on it, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is 5, because I think of dark horse is Seattle to take Penix because the offensive coordinator is there. Yep. I could see that happening. And then I just saw on my phone before we started, could Dallas be in the running for a quarterback? Because with all this
Dak thing worse than we think. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they have Trey Lance as a backup, but obviously they've got a half a year of Trey Lance or whatever it was, a year of Trey Lance to see what he could do in practice and stuff. Do they think Trey Lance is even the answer, or do they go and draft a quarterback?
I know it's a wide receiver thing, but just to continue the tangent, we had this discussion when the Justin Fields trade happened. and how cheap it was, and I was surprised there weren't more teams in. Because if you just looked at the numbers, right, just hypothetically, all the teams that need quarterbacks, right, and I didn't include Dallas in that list,
Right.
but all the teams that actually need quarterbacks, somebody was getting fucked over, like that had a top 15 pick that needed a quarterback, and they weren't going to get one, and I couldn't understand why more teams weren't in on Justin Fields at the time, but maybe that was a prelude to say that maybe Nix or Penix is going to be a first rounder as well. Like maybe we do have 5 quarterbacks here in this class.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, right? Like say the Vikings traded up to 4, right? And quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, 4, right? McCarthy being the 4th, or Drake May, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. That 4th one off the board. Think about all the teams that still needed quarterbacks that just missed out on one, right? Like the Broncos need one, definitely. The Raiders probably need one. Seattle's not a super safe place. You just added Dallas as like another team who could potentially get one, right? We didn't even talk about the team that picks at 6, the Giants. You know, all the reports are they're done with Danny Dimes. Like that's another team that still could have used a quarterback. So, be interesting to see how it shakes out, man. Be interested to see if we get a 5th, maybe even a 6th. I think the 6th would shock the shit out of me, but hey, I'm here for it.
All right, so continuing back on the wide receivers, you had him at 10. I have him at 11. And that's Keon Coleman for Florida State. Big guy, obviously 6'4", 215. I think he's kind of more of a, if I had to use him, I think I'd use him as like a big slot. I think that's kind of where I think he fits the best.
That's not bad. It's not bad.
Their comp for him is Mike Williams. I could see that too.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm guessing it's the
good one.
Mike Williams, the Mike Williams here, not the USC Mike Williams, who I thought was going to be a god back in the day, but he got too big.
We had 3 of them, right? we had the USC one, and then you had the one from Syracuse who played with Tampa Bay in the mid 2000s, maybe.
Yeah.
Early 2010s. Don't quote me on that one, but there was a Mike Williams from Syracuse, and he had like a season or 2, maybe. And then you had this one from Clemson playing with the Chargers. So,
and then we had 2 Michael Thomases at one time, like at the same time.
One of them was on the Rams or something.
Yeah, the Rams, and then
Southern Miss or something was the college he went. I didn't know who the fuck that dude was.
yeah, he wasn't any good. But no, Keon Coleman, man, like he is definitely a interesting prospect for sure. Red zone, I could see this guy being, big time red zone type of weapon, but he doesn't have like, creating separation and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have any of that. So he's going to have to be like, I think kind of like that big slot. Like I said, I think that's going to probably be his role or where I would envision him. Like he could be, I've heard Daniel Jeremiah then talk about him like a Marquise Colston is kind of like their comp maybe for him. So I could see that. Obviously, some people say Michael Thomas, but I think Michael Thomas is a better player than him. But Colston, I could see that for Coleman.
He had a rough year this time with contested catches. The one at Michigan State was pretty awesome, though. He did just fine there. And when he was at Michigan State, he's the one who kept Jaden Reed, who turned out to be okay at bay. Yeah. Like, he outproduced him. A lot of it, when I watched the Keon Coleman tape, he had moments, right? The LSU game, the first one, 3 touchdowns, exploded on the scene. We're like, holy shit, right? He houses a slant. A slant. So you knew, like, he's got decent enough speed, right? If you're a really slow motherfucker against LSU, you're not housing that.
Yeah. Then we found out LSU's defense was complete dog shit.
Yes. But he has moments where he can separate and he can run routes. They're just not always super crisp. They're not consistent. Right. He does still make highlight catches. I think the biggest thing when I went back and rewatched some of his tape and started digging into the All-22, man, Jordan Travis is fucking abysmal, man. And maybe it was just my
that's my guy that I love. I like
my Florida State fandom, but this guy couldn't hit the broadside of a fucking barn. He was terrible. Keon would run a great route for once, and Travis is just like locked in to throw a fucking seam to Jaheim Bell, even though there's triple coverage. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Right. Or he sails it over Keon's head, or Keon runs a good route up the sideline, and Jordan Travis is thrown into the first row. It was rough to watch. And then when Travis went down, the 2 quarterbacks who backed up Travis were really abysmal, right? you prayed to have Jordan Travis back. So
Yeah.
kind of a mixed bag with Keon, but still a guy that I kind of like inside my top 10, but obviously subject to what the NFL says. If he ends up being a 4th-round pick, late 3rd rounder, all right, I probably don't give a shit anymore. Like, I'm good.
Right. All right, next guy up, Roman Wilson from Michigan. So obviously his stats aren't the greatest because Michigan obviously didn't throw the ball a bunch. But his final year here, 48 catches, 789 yards, and 12 touchdowns. So that's a pretty damn good year for him. He's one of those super physical, fearless type of players. He's gonna fucking block the shit out of you. He's gonna, go in over the middle and make that tough catch. He does have some speed. He could stretch the field a little bit. He's not like a super burner or anything. Just very tough red zone threat. Think he's going to be a really good slot receiver in the NFL. Their comparison for him is Golden Tate. I could see that with like maybe not as like over the top kind of stuff that Golden Tate could do. But I could see that as a decent comp for him, Golden Tate.
I wasn't a big fan of him. I heard the hype coming from other people who really do love him. When I dove in and watched the Michigan tape, just as a whole for Michigan tape was pretty uninspiring to watch from this past year. Blake Corum, McCarthy made
handoffs,
yeah, McCarthy he made some plays, but Blake Corum was pretty mad. Donovan Edwards was terrible, by the way. When we were watching, it was abysmal. The only person on Michigan's team that I walked away like impressed with and liking a little bit more was Colston Loveland, and you don't get to see him till next year at the earliest at the tight end. But Roman Wilson just didn't really do anything for me. It was just kind of meh. Like, he just feels like a guy to me that's just going to get lost at the next level. Like, that's going to be the dude where he gets 4th-round draft capital, and you're like, I know the name, and then never actually sees the field.
He feels like a Steeler to me. One of those tough guys, slot, gonna block the shit out of you. He's gonna make those tough catches. He kind of feels like a Steeler to me. I could see that.
Could be.
Yeah. All right, next one up. I'm gonna kind of do these guys together, and that's both Washington receivers, Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. Now, I am the guy that is got him flip-flop compared to everybody else. Everyone has Polk above McMillan. I have McMillan above Polk, obviously by one spot. So with McMillan, man, when I watched him, he was kind of, I don't want to say like Pearsall, but he was like real smooth in his routes, kind of like a trying to think of their comparison to him is Khalil Shakir. I could maybe see a little bit of that. I kind of saw like a little bit of Jarvis Landry to his game a little bit. Maybe not as volume dependent, catch 110 passes or anything, but creating separation. He has some speed to win vertically, which Jarvis Landry, wasn't a vertical receiver, but route running was really good, just like Jarvis Landry a little bit. He can do some like little gadget plays I've seen him do, just like your reverses and shit like that. I don't know. I just liked McMillan's game quite a bit compared to Polk, and he had some injuries, which I think gave Polk more of a shot to play over him and showcase a little bit more. So I think that kind of hurt McMillan a little bit, especially this past year.
Yeah, this past year, I don't think McMillan was ever really healthy. Even when he came back, he still didn't really look like himself. Now, 2 years ago, if you were to ask Washington Husky fans, college football fans in 2022, who was the best receiver on Washington, a surprising amount of people would have told you Jalen McMillan. And this was with Adunze still doing stuff, right?
Yeah, 79 for 1098, 9 touchdowns.
He was really good. I kind of like some of them comps that you threw out there for him. Mine has always kind of been like a diet JSN, just kind of in the way he moves, kind of that smoothness. Obviously, with not the ballyhoo and the giant eye-popping numbers at times that JSN had put up, but kind of that. I do have Polk over him, but I don't hate if you have him flip-flopped. Like, I honestly believe maybe Jalen McMillan might be the better NFL prospect in the long term. Like, I think he might have more of a role. I do love Polk's game, though, from this last year. He did improve. If you look 2 years ago, he was more of an afterthought. But this past year, I kind of got some Jacoby Myers vibes from him. Like with the way he wins and the way he moves. It's not sexy, it's not flashy, but it's like, fuck, this dude's open and he just catches it. He's open, he catches it.
Their comp for Polk is Tyler Boyd, so that's kind of the same
Hey,
thing.
Jacoby Myers, yeah.
Tyler Boyd. It's like
right,
it's like the Spider-Man meme. Yep.
Point at him. Yep.
Yep. Like I don't think Polk is like. I think I like McMillan more because he has speed and separation skills, whereas Polk is gonna probably not be able to smoke you. He's gonna have a guy in his hip pocket all the time. He's not gonna be able to beat you. But his catch radius, you going up and get the ball. His tracking skills. He can win a little bit vertically. Very good hands, chain moving possession type receiver. I think Jalen Polk could definitely sit in someone's slot and work like shit. If he goes to Cincinnati and he's the Tyler Boyd replacement, I'd love that for Polk. I think that would be
money.
Spot.
That would be money.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking of those guys. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Dude, if he could end up in like Buffalo in round 3, that would also be pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, but the only problem with that is with Shakir and Samuel there, it's like you're just going to have 3 slot receivers and nobody on the outside.
I got questions whether or not Samuel still has it, and I don't know if Shakir ever had it.
Right. I could see that too.
He would definitely, at least for me, be the best one walking in the door.
Right. The last one in my tier here, I'll just bring him up because you have him in your next tier, is Devontae Walker. He's kind of been a polarizing guy in this process as well. He's transferred over from
Kent State.
Yep. And then he went over to North Carolina, played with Drake May this past year, had a whole bunch of issues with eligibility and all that bullshit at the beginning of the year. So he only played 8 games, 41 catches, 699 yards, 7 touchdowns for Devontae Walker. He's kind of like a he's got the ability to go stretch the field. He can win at all 3 levels. Like, it's not like he's a Will Fuller. All he can do is fucking go get the ball deep, and that's it. So he can, he does have a good route tree, all that kind of stuff. Play strength is good. His route running, it could be a little bit better. Obviously, he can do the route tree completely, but he's just gonna have to improve on his routes. Is kind of what I'm getting at. I don't think he's a first round pick like you kind of thought. I don't even know if he's a second round pick. He might be a guy that falls to the 3rd round. But I could see him being. Their comp for him is Brashad Perriman. That's not terrible, but I think he's a little bit better than that.
I think as prospects, that's probably fair. It's probably fair. He's got a lot of like Alec Pierce to him too. Like just that.
I could see that. Yep.
Not refined in his route running, kind of lazy, but Jesus Christ, every now and then he just gets over the top and makes a giant play, and the speed is evident, and he's put together, right? Yeah. Like he's not an Adonis, but he's put together pretty solidly. Yeah. I think he's very fucking raw though, very raw. Yeah. Now, one of those questions, a lot of those guys who come in who are raw, like they never really develop, or the NFL coaching staffs don't take the time to develop them, and you never see them, but you always got that what if. Like, what if somebody were to teach him how to be a little bit sharper and crisper in his routes, and he can actually put it all together, and now he's got an intermediate game, and you pair that with his ability to literally blow the fucking top off of defense, and now you got something. But I'm kind of with you. At one point, he was a first-round projection, and, obviously that was probably bullshit when you now dive into it. Round 2 feels like a stretch. Like, more feels like a round 3, round 4 kind of wide receiver. More of a development kind of slide in the door. But where he's at for both of our tiers kind of feels right. But intriguing, right? Because you can't teach, being 6'1" and running a 4.36 and, being damn near 200 pounds.
Right. I agree.
He's pretty awesome at getting downfield on go routes.
Right. All right. So your tier 6 and tier 7, I'm going to name off here. Most of these guys we've kind of talked about, but you have Polk, McMillan, Brennan Rice, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Devontae Walker is your tier 6. Tier 7, Javon Baker, Malachi Corley, Luke McCaffrey, and then Roman Wilson. So you have Roman Wilson further down than I do. And then my tier 4, which is my 16 to 22 receivers, I have Jermaine Burton, Brendan Rice, Malik Washington, Johnny Wilson, Malachi Corley, Luke McCaffrey, and Jalen Coker is my top 22 there. So we'll kind of just talk about a few of these guys. We're not going to go through every single one of them. Let's start with a guy that we both have, in these kind of tiers here. And then you mentioned him earlier, was Malachi Corley. Obviously, he gets a lot of the Deebo Samuel comparisons. Really good after the catch, manufactured touches. Not going to be like a super great route runner. He was basically just limited routes, basic route concepts. Wasn't asked to beat man coverage. Can he win vertically? Because he was doing a lot of short stuff and yards after the catch kind of things at Western Kentucky. Big dude though. He is kind of built like Deebo Samuel. People give him that comp. Their comp for him is Cordell Patterson. I could see that, but Cordell Patterson was like a fucking 4.3 coming out of college. He was fast. So, 2 years, 2022, 101 catches, 1295 and 11 touchdowns, 79 catches, 984 and 11 touchdowns. Missed 2 games last year. The one other thing with the Deebo Samuel comp is he didn't run the ball like that much. It wasn't like he was Deebo getting 5-6 carries a game and making a difference there. So that's another one that kind of not worries me, but is different than what people are kind of comparing him to. But he's going to have to, I think he's kind of like a manufactured touch player. I don't see like the elite stuff like, Deebo had when he was coming out, because I really liked Deebo when he came out. So I'm not as big on Corley as a lot of others. What's your thoughts on him?
So I initially in the process, I kind of liked him, right? Kind of like the stuff you heard at the Senior Bowl when his name started getting brought up, and then you started getting the practice reports and the game reports. And the more and more I've dug into Malachi Corley, the more and more he's moved down my board, and I don't think that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
The latest thing too, like I had to go look, a 5.5 yard ADOT.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a lot of short passes.
By far and away the worst in this class. Now, I tried to comp him to like some other guys who kind of fit that profile, right? You threw out the Deebo one.
Yep.
Did you take a guess what Deebo's ADOT was?
I would probably say 12 something.
His last year in college was 8.7. His junior year was 11, right? Okay. So the Deebo one I could throw away. How about Laviska Shenault? Again, another guy I was very high on for bad reasons.
Gadget type player, yep.
What was his ADOT his final year, you think?
Hopefully in the 8s or 9s.
10.1, Eric.
10, okay. Yep. Right. So he's doubling up Malachi. Yeah.
He's doubling up Malachi Corley. And then I went and I look at Malachi Corley's receiving chart, and you got 44 targets behind the line of scrimmage, Eric. 44 targets, which if you separate it into behind the line of scrimmage, 10 yard, 20 yards, and over 20 yards, that is his biggest by far and away is 44 targets, the biggest percentage. Yeah. Doesn't bode well. As far as targets over 20 yards, Eric, he only had 9. Yeah. It's like 9 times. All right, maybe you lost a guy. He only ended up catching 5 of those 9 too, by the way, but not good. Like the more and more I dig into it, the more and more I'm like, I don't see it. Like an NFL team's gonna have to tell me differently. But even if they do, Laviska Shenault was a second round pick, and that shit didn't work.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
I think if he go into a team, they have to have like that Deebo specific role for him planned out and use him in that role. Like it's just a specific type of role that not every team is going to have, not every team is going to be able to use properly. And it's not even like a role that's super productive. Like obviously Deebo's a way better player than just some gadget player.
Because he gets downfield sometimes too, right? Like exactly, he will hit you with the 20-yard route down the field and you go, fuck, exactly. I forgot you can do this too.
Right, yeah. And that's how Malachi isn't. Like Mike was just saying, a lot of his routes are behind the line of scrimmage and all that. So definitely a guy that I haven't been like, super, super high on. Let's see a couple other guys here. So I had Jermaine Burton at the top of my tier here. Jermaine Burton, I think he's a guy that's kind of gotten shit on a little bit here over the process too. Like he was at Georgia, had an amazing freshman year, and fell out of favor there. I guess he had problems with the coaching staff. Went to Alabama. I heard somebody say that he might have had some issues there with the coaching staff at Alabama too. So I do
Yeah.
have a little bit of pause on Jermaine Burton just because maybe he's just, I don't want to say troublemaker or whatever. He's just not, whatever the issue is. He's had it at two of the elite programs in the in college football. He's gonna go to the NFL. He's gonna probably have the same kind of issues.
Yeah, he's got that bad issue too with punching the female fan.
Yeah,
When
he had that one.
the Tennessee game. Yep.
Yep.
Caught on camera on that one.
Yep. Their comparison for him was Darius Slayton. I could see that a little bit. I think he's a little bit better than Darius Slayton.
Yeah.
He is really fast. Like, excellent deep ball guy. He can go get it. He can win at all three levels. That was another thing I liked about him. He could stretch the field. He can work the zones in the middle of the field. He could do all that kind of stuff. Not really big. He's gonna have to get better strength and all that. And he never really hit 1,000 yards. Like, his top yards was last year 798 for a guy that was a super elite prospect coming out. He should have been a lot better than this. So he never really hit his ceiling. I think he's probably more of a 3rd to 4th round draft pick. But if he ends up in a good spot, like, I could see him being like a solid, number 2 ceiling, but probably more of a number 3 kind of option. Maybe as like the outside 3rd option where the team has a better, an alpha and a better slot player. Is kind of where I'm seeing Burton.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'd take some shots on Burton. He's interesting, but he does have off-field concerns, so we'll have to see how that plays out. One of the guys I was going to highlight, Eric Javon Baker. The drum beat for him is getting stronger and stronger. More and more people are jumping on this. Shout out to D-Bro for it. Shout out to Cody Carpentier for that as well. Listen to a lot of those guys talk about Javon Baker. Probably need to move him up in my ranks personally. So that's somebody I'm getting more and more interested in. Found myself drafting a lot of them in those pre-NFL drafts. Just like, oh, fuck it, 312, why not? 402, why not? Like, Luke McCaffrey is going to be interesting. More athletic than his brother. Who would have guessed that one?
Yeah.
So I like him. And one of my personal favorites through this whole thing, kind of been up and down, especially with the Senior Bowl part, the injury. But Jacob Cowing is a guy that I like.
Yeah.
Watching film on him, it just seems like you can't guard him. Like, you just can't. Like, good luck, but you can't. So I don't know if it's going to translate again. Another guy, though, kind of like Malachi Corley with a suspect ADOT at times. Even not as bad as Corley, but 6.9 isn't still fantastic.
Yeah. The other one I wanted to highlight real quick here from my tier 4, Malik Washington. Malik Washington, I really like his game too, man. He is short at 5'8", but man, he's got a really good strength. He's just a dangerous guy in the open field. He transferred over to Virginia this past year, 110 catches, 1426, and 9 touchdowns. Their comparison for him is Randall Cobb. I don't mind that. I think that's a pretty solid.
So let me bring this up too, because when I was doing some research pre-show, Eric, on this one, just looking at something, PFF receiving grades for 2024 wide receiver prospects, people who were eligible in 2024, who had 20% of 152 targets. So somebody smarter than me can do the fucking math on that one. 34, at least 34 targets, right? So you filter them out. Number 1 in receiving grade, Malik Neighbors. No surprise, right? Yep. Marvin Harrison, 3. Roma Dunze, 4. Troy Franklin, 6. Xavier Legette, 7. Right? All guys we've talked glowingly at times on this show. You know who's fucking number 2? Malik Washington.
Yeah.
Malik fucking Washington, man. I don't even have him ranked on my sheet. Right? Like, this is a guy when I looked at when he came up in these drafts, and I'm looking at this thing like, oh, fuck, man, I might have had a big miss here. I didn't even rank this guy out of 25 wide receivers. I feel like I need to go back and, before we get to the NFL draft, Eric, I'm making it a mission. Malik Washington's going to be the guy I need to watch.
Yeah, I watched a pretty good highlight video on him. I'll have to send it to you after the show. But yeah, that's definitely a guy that I like. He had he's an older prospect because he has been in college for 5 years, like a lot of these guys, but I think Malik Washington can make, an impact on day 1 here on some teams. So that's a guy I think is going to go in the first, second, or third round. I don't see him falling to day 4 or to round 4. I just don't see it. So I think he's going to be one that I'm very interested in. We both have Brendan Rice pretty high too, so both like Brendan Rice, really good route runner. Obviously, he's not his dad, but he can go get the ball too, man. I liked Brendan Rice. I think he could be. I think he's going to be a solid contributor in the NFL.
Yeah, his tape was a little bit more less impressive as kind of I thought, right? Like his analytics are pretty decent. His highlight reel is pretty decent. The full on tape was more like Roman Wilson vibes for me, and that was like I was going, oh shit, man! I was hoping to be a little bit more impressed. I came away far more impressed with his running mate. So I don't know if I need to update this and maybe flip flop him. But Taj Washington kind of gave me some of those diet Tank Dell vibes, right? The little guy could fucking move and separate. He could move and separate. He was a little bit more impressive on film than Brendan Rice, which was surprising to me.
Yeah, no, I like Taj too. That's another good one. Another one I wanted to mention too is Xavier Weaver from Colorado. That's a guy who can fucking go get the ball, man. He's definitely one of the guys I watched and was like, I definitely didn't see this one coming. So that's
Right.
definitely a sleeper prospect that I really liked. Xavier Weaver from Colorado, speed, winning all kinds of spots in the field. So I liked him as well. Anybody else on here you wanted to give like a shout out to before we move on to tight ends?
No, pretty deep wide receiver class.
Yeah.
Really, really deep. Some very intriguing prospects here.
Yeah, the other one I had high here, Johnny Wilson. I could see him converting to tight end.
I
So we'll
would
see if
rank
that
him
happens.
extremely high if he converted
Yeah,
to
he'd
tight end.
probably be in my top 5 for tight ends for sure. Yeah, I agree.
I don't think wide receivers in his future, but some people will fight me on that, so I understand.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Being a porn star might be in my future too, but it's not. So.
Maybe you get lucky, Eric.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so tight ends. Obviously, Brock Bowers, tier 1. Nobody else is in that tier. I think we both agree on that, right?
Yeah, not even fucking
Okay.
close.
Yeah, I mean, elite everything. Hands, blocking ability, route running, athleticism, you name
Yak.
it. Brock Bowers had, yak. Like, he's going to be, I think he walks into the NFL as a top, I'll be conservative and say top 5 dynasty tight end. He's probably higher than that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with this Stefon Diggs trade. Because of the Dalton Kincaid rise that you're going to see. Obviously, you already saw the Kyle Pitts rise with the Kirk Cousins thing. So, Sam Laporta and Trey McBride are also very awesome. Mark Andrews, still pretty good. So, it might be a little bit tougher than we thought before. Now we're kind of getting some more names up there, but he's going to come in pretty damn high for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it depends on what team he goes to as well. Like, if he goes, I don't even know what a bad team would be at the moment, just off the top of my head. But like, if he went to the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, like I know Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a very good history with rookies. I think this is maybe a rookie that makes the exception, and he fucking uses him like he should. Justin Herbert with him, like they have nobody. Like I could see Brock Bowers killing it there, but I just don't see. I don't see the Chargers pulling that trigger to go Brock Bowers with their first pick with this new regime. There's talks of him, Brock Bowers, he should go a lot higher, but he's going to fall. Like, I've seen the Colts as like a perfect spot for him that people mock all the time. I don't know if he gets down to 15. I think somebody pulls the trigger on him before then. Like, I could see Denver taking him, even though they have so many more needs.
You want to talk about a bad spot, though? That would be a bad spot for me. Like, fuck. Jared Stidham? God damn it.
But you got to remember, too, like, yeah, I mean, obviously it's Jared Stidham, but, like, Sean Payton had Jimmy Graham, made him a fucking god. So, like.
With Drew Brees.
Obviously it's with Drew Brees, yes, I agree. But I could see him, I don't want to say it's a terrible spot, but we'll see what happens there. Enough on Brock Bowers. Everybody knows about him. So
He's
our
good.
our tier 2 or my tier 2, yours is just Jatavian Sanders. I have Jatavian Sanders, Ben Sinnott, and Theo Johnson in my tier 2 as well. So with Sanders, really good after the catch, all that elite athleticism, type of player, ability to generate yards after the catch, which I talked about, strong hands. Blocking isn't that great. He's going to have to probably be, flexed out more. I think I actually like this comparison. Jonnu Smith, I think that's a good comp for him. If he could be
A
Jonnu
little
Smith,
taller.
I think that,
Yep.
yeah, a little taller. I think that would be a good spot for him. Somebody's going to get him, and I think he's going to be a guy. Yeah, I think a lot of people think he's going to go round 2. I think he's going to fall to round 3 because I don't think his testing was as great as people thought it was going to be.
No, I thought it was going to be a lot better, right? My pre-NFL Combine comp was more of a David Njoku type, and
Right.
obviously at a 4.69, that's not the same. We know that. But his play speed looks really good. His play
Yes,
speed
it
looks
does.
his athletic testing was kind of disappointing. So it still turned out okay. Like he still meets all the minimum thresholds you look at for tight end athleticism as far as RAS and 40 goes. So still fine there. No giant red flags. But he tested more like a Michael Mayer athletically than he did like a David Njoku. So adjust accordingly. Which, I still think Mayer was a fine prospect. I would say he's a lot more refined in the receiving game than Jatavian Sanders. Former defensive end, by the way. He's a convert. And you're right. Like, his blocking definitely needs to improve. But tier 2 by himself for me. And I think it just speaks more to the rest of this tight end class as being pretty weak as a whole.
Yeah, after I watched some of the tight ends, like I know there's a lot more tight ends than I'm a nut when it comes to this shit, so I have 20 ranked, and I could probably,
You're an
do
animal.
another 10 more, and I'm like, I can't. I gotta tap out at some point. Like
I
these guys
fucking
are-
gave up after 11.
Yeah, so a couple of these guys, they're not gonna be in the NFL, so it's not even worth it. Ben Sinnott from Kansas State, I really like this one. I have him at 3, obviously. Man, he 49 catches, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns. Great athlete, mover in space. I just liked how he moved in space, man. I think he could be, I don't want to say he's going to be like one of these Kincaid types or anything like that, but I think he could be somebody who has a couple tight end 1 seasons in him if he ends up getting some starts there. He's going to have to probably be he can use them in line, so it's not like he has to like go out wide or anything like some of these other guys. But you can use them in line. Definitely versatile type player, strong route runner, pacing, tempo, and sit in the zone, stuff like that was really evident on tape. So I liked Ben Sinnott quite a bit.
He's kind of grown on me too, and then I found out he's from Waterloo, Iowa, which is about 2 hours away from me too. So, UNI Panthers home college there, but went down to Kansas State. I like him a little bit more, especially knowing he's an Iowa kid. But Ben Sinnott, I think he's worthy of being in that conversation. I got him a little bit lower. I have some other guys that I like a little bit more. But he's decent. I think probably the most surprising thing about them pre-NFL rookie drafts is that's a lot of people's tight end 3, just kind of how it goes. But we had a few of them, Eric. That some bitch slipped through undrafted and was a UDFA in some of these leagues, which was like, what the fuck? What's going on here?
That's an interesting point because when we did our pre-draft rookie drafts in a couple of our leagues, you obviously Brock Bowers goes in round 1. Jadavian Sanders goes round 2. Maybe he slips into early round 3. Everyone else is fucking round 5 or undrafted, like pretty much. Like
Right.
round 5 was like the tight end round. Cade Stover, Ben Snott, Theo Johnson, Jared Wiley. All these guys would fall in these round 5s and would always get taken, or they get undrafted most of the time. So, that's definitely a spot where I'm not going to be spending a lot of draft capital this season. I might take I think one of the leagues I took a Stover. One of the leagues I took a Theo Johnson, just so I have a sprinkle of these guys. Like I'm not going to be overdrafting these guys. Theo Johnson, we'll get into him real quick. Super athletic player, kind of like all these Penn State guys. Super great athlete, versatile, play both inline and a move tight end. He can move outside. Obviously wasn't used very much at Penn State. I think he's going to be a better pro than he was college player, like a lot of people think. Just a guy that I'm not going to invest a shit ton of capital into him. Like if he falls to round 5, sure, I'll take a shot at him or two and hope he hits, but I don't think he's ever going to be some fantasy contributor. He might have a couple games like a Donald Parham type player where he has a couple of games here and there for best ball, but as far as like being a starter, I don't think I see it.
I like him for the simple fact he is extremely athletic. A fucking Raz god. A walking one. Now, he had a lot of hype. This past year, though, the one thing I can't explain is why the fuck Tyler Warren was playing over him quite a bit. And I didn't think much of Tyler Warren heading into last year, especially in C2C leagues where you need to kind of be aware of who the tight ends are that you need to roster because most of them suck in college football. So that was a big question mark. But then he comes out and absolutely kills it at the combine. And if I'm going to bet on anything in a weak tight end class, it's definitely going to be athleticism, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to just shoot for the maximum amount of upside. Is he probably nothing? Yeah. I mean, fucking Zach Coots tested off the charts, and you can probably drop him everywhere this year. Like, who gives a shit now? But Theo Johnson's pretty interesting. I took him as tight end 3 or tight end 4 off the board quite a bit in these pre-NFL drafts. Like, if I'm going to shoot my shot in the 4th round, it's going to be on, like, a Theo Johnson type.
Right. All right, we'll go over the rest of your tight ends here. So tier 3, you have Dalen Holker and Theo Johnson. Tier 4, you have Jaheim Bell, Ben Sinnott, Cade Stover, Eric All. And then to round it out, your tier 5, Jared Wiley, Bryson Nesbitt, and Brevin Spanford. And then I'll just go over my tier 3 here. I have Stover, Jared Wiley, Tanner McLaughlin, Bryson Nesbitt, Jaheim Bell, Brant Kuthi, Eric All, and then I have Dalen Holker at 4. But you like Holker quite a bit, so I'll let you talk about him.
I love me some Dalen Holker. Pretty awesome. Now, I had no idea who the hell he was until Colorado played Colorado State in that primetime game.
Yep.
He had a monster game and broke out. And the rest of the season was basically the same, especially if you played in C2C leagues. Dalen Holker was one of the best scoring tight end players out there, period. Like, one of the best. 105 fucking targets last year in college at the tight end position. Size came in okay. Athletics came in okay. Production definitely this past year, like, off the charts. So Dalen Holker, a big favorite of mine. Now, if you kind of rank him versus some past tight end classes, like, definitely not in the conversation of like a Freiermuth or where a Sam Laporta was going, right? We can be honest about that, but a decent enough dart. I probably would have taken him as a prospect above like a Chig or a Dolchich, right? So if that's kind of where the range needs to be, and both of those guys hit to some degree in their rookie years, had some dynasty value. But Dalen Holker, if you don't know the name, go check him out, because not just versus Colorado, the entire season. Big part of their offense. Him and Torrey Horton, which I really was sad when he went back to school. I wanted to see him come out a wide receiver, another favorite off of Colorado State.
Another one I'll shout out here was my top of my tier 3 here was Cade Stover from the Ohio State. Strong hands at the catch point, above average ability, break tackles after the catch, really strong blocker as well. Like, he doesn't have like elite speed, but man, it seemed like whenever he got the ball, man, he's breaking tackles, running over people, good mover. Like, I really liked what I saw from him. Like, Ohio State does not have a great history of tight ends. Like, we've had a bunch drafted, none of them have fucking worked out in the NFL. So that gives me a little bit of pause, but I think Stover can at least be maybe a starter. If not, he can be a very solid number 2 that, is a good blocker and, red zone guy. He can make a couple catches, touchdowns here and there. But as far as like starter, like, fantasy starter, I don't think I see it. But yeah, that's another guy I liked.
He kind of reminded me when we were watching him on tape. He was more impressive. I had no real opinions of him before we watched the Marvin Harrison tape, and the guy who jumped off for most people was Cade Stover. Like, just open, trusted by Kyle McCord, make the play, didn't fuck up like a whole lot. Just solid, really solid. Kind of gave me some of those Tyler Conklin vibes, right? Unheralded, nobody really knew who he really was, and then all of a sudden you're like, this just does the right fucking thing, man. He's just right there, catches the ball, does solid things. So I like him too. I put him in the last. It's my tier 4, but my tier 4 is really like the last of the tight ends I give any shits about. Jaheim Bell, Ben Sinnott, Cade Stover, and Eric All. And Eric All is got a lot of injury concerns. Bad back, blown out ACL. You don't even know if he's going to play this upcoming year, but when he was on the field for Iowa, he was impressive. Not as impressive as your 2025 tight end one, Luke Lachey, though. You heard it here first.
Right. Um, the comp for him on here was Dawson Knox, so I could see that for Stover too.
Oh, I can get behind some Knox. Yep.
Yeah. The one last guy I want to shout out before we wrap it up here, Tanner McLaughlin from Arizona. That was a guy I really liked watching his tape. Yards after the catch, reliable hands. He had 0 drops in 2023. Fluid athlete. I don't remember what his RAS score was, but when I watched him, he kind of gave me Luke Musgrave vibes, but maybe not as fast as what Luke Musgrave was. But he was a really good tight end that you could use all over the field. You could spread him out. He could hold up fine inline blocking. But Tanner McLaughlin, that's a guy that I've been picking up off of waivers and drafts that have happened already, and kind of see where he goes. I'm not expecting him to be a starter, but I think he has a chance. If he gets in the right system and hits his ceiling projections, I think Tanner McLaughlin could be a guy that sneaks in and is somebody that contributes in the NFL.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch him now, just on your recommendation here. I know absolutely fucking nothing about him, but
okay.
I will say this.
I'll send you some videos.
Fuck yeah, the final point of tight ends. If I hit this year on Dallin Holker, if he becomes something, Dallin Holker, with Tucker Kraft last year and Sam Laporta, I'm changing my fucking name to the tight end king. Fuck that tear down stuff, man. I got this on lock, right? You think Noah Hills knows running backs? I know tight ends, boys. And if I miss, we'll just forget this conversation ever happened.
Another one, I'll just mention him quickly before we wrap up. Brant Kuthi from Utah. He was supposed to be better than Dalton Kincaid.
By far and away, too.
Yeah.
By far and away. Nobody knew who the fuck Dalton Kincaid was.
Yeah, and this guy had a lot of injury problems and all that stuff. So 2 surgeries to recover, coming off a year and a half of being out of football. So he really hasn't played last year, played 4 games in 2022. If he can get back to his pre-form before his injury, that's a guy I'm not going to draft him because he's probably not going to be somebody I'm willing to draft. But if I have some deep rosters, that's a guy I'll pick up off of waivers for, $1 or $0 or whatever, and just see what happens. And if he doesn't get it back, I can drop him.
Yeah. Any interest in Tip Riemann? Another Raz god, but
yeah. I watched him. It wasn't terrible, but it's nothing great. I think it's. Let me make sure. I'm gonna look on my list here. Yeah, the South Dakota State guy, Zach Hines. That's a 6'6" big dude. He was interesting to me too. I didn't have him as high as some of these other guys, but 6'6" big tight end that could play some tight end. Sign me up.
Tanner McLaughlin came in at a 7.66 RAS, so just fine.
Yeah, that's definitely fine. So
just fine. Some of the RAS guys who you can just cross off your list, though, I didn't have them on there anyways. Trey Knox.
I don't even have him ranked.
4.63 pass. That's really about it, man. Jatavian Sanders did come in lower than you wanted at a 5.75.
Yeah. Jaheim Bell, I think he tested all right, but he's remember Jalen Samuels? That's what everybody he's gonna be a tight end, he's gonna be great. I just have this vibe that Jaheim Bell is gonna be the next fucking Jalen Samuels. Oh, do we use him at running back? Do we use him at tight end? And nobody knows, and then his career just goes to shit.
So the only thing that saved it for Jaheim Bell was the official combine measurement of 6'2". Because there was rumors, I think at the Senior Bowl he measured in at 6 foot, sub 6'1". Where if you measure in as a 6 foot tight end, right? Jalen Samuels is now your comp. Your rosiest of outcomes is fucking Delaney Walker at that point. Yeah. Which is just, you might as well just put that as a death sentence. But 6'2", you can do a Jonnu Smith, Chigakonkwo, that kind of mental gymnastics to still be okay on Jaheim Bell. But I swear if his official combine measurement was, 6 foot and a half, I would have been fuck, all right, just put him off my board. I'm good. Pass. I'm going to take all the Tip Riemann instead.
There you go. Yeah, I know Scott has talked about in the past when he's done tight end stuff. Like it's like if you're not like a 6'5" or 6'6" tight end, it's probably not great.
Which is interesting here because a lot of these tight ends who are hitting lately
Yeah, yeah.
are in that
And
like
this is
6'4".
before. Yeah, this is before all that. Like 2 years ago, before Laporta and fucking all these other guys.
You know,
started
Laporta,
smashing.
Trey McBride, Brock
Yeah.
Bowers is the same size as Laporta is,
Yeah,
almost to a T.
I think we're in the tight end evolution right now. Like this is, where the tight ends are changing. Like this is the part of the game where it's changing right now. Like I don't know how to really explain it better than that, but like things are changing where rookie tight ends can come in now and fucking smash. Like years ago, it fucking, tight ends weren't smashing at all when they came in. Like it was very, very rare if you did. I mean, Laporta just set all kinds of records and shit,
Right.
for rookie tight ends. So
A 6'3" tight end, like I would equate that now to like, the 195, 200-pound running back, right?
yeah,
Where you go like, okay, like we got enough examples of these dudes succeeding, we're fine. The 6'2" and below tight ends, you equate that to like the 170-pound running back, the 165-pound running back. We're like, good fucking luck, buddy.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell. Yep, exactly.
Good luck. You're probably gonna die.
Yeah. All right, America's favorite game. We'll get out of here. Who is your favorite wide receiver or tight end prospect of all time?
Ooh, prospect. Just
Yes.
prospect. So
Just somebody you really liked coming out. You're like, man, this guy's gonna be the fucking shit.
I
If
thought
you want
for
to give me
sure.
one for each position, that's fine too. Or if you want to just give me one.
I know we probably touched on it in this show before, but I could have swore that Matt Jones coming out of Arkansas
Oh,
at
yeah,
wide
yeah,
receiver was going to be the shit. Right?
Yep.
But
He was shit.
he was decent. He just loved cocaine, man. He loved that Colombian bamboo. I will say I'll keep it to my Dynasty experience too, because that's when you really started digging into these guys. And some of them are massive misses, man. I was for sure that we talked about him on this show. Laviska Shenault was going to be that dude.
Yeah.
No.
Not at all.
No, for a wide receiver, that was probably the one that I had like the biggest flag plant on it. Yeah. No eggplant for that flag plant, Eric.
No, not at all.
Tight end flag plant, though, that one's easy. That's a fucking layup, man. Sam Laporta, because I've been trying to
Yeah,
get people
you were
on him
all
for
over
fucking 3 years, and nobody wanted to listen ever. Until he got drafted in the second round, and they're like, maybe Mike knows something. I do, fuckers. Every now and then.
If you play in Campus to Canton or you have Devy drafts coming up, remember the name Luke Lachey.
Please do. He is
That's
amazing.
Mike's next guy. Yeah, that's Mike's next guy. Got injured last year after he was fucking smashing, so hopefully he comes back this year healthy, ready to go.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how he rebounds. It is a severe injury. He had a broken ankle like Tony Pollard. So
Yeah.
and we saw kind of what happened with that this year. Like
Yeah.
a little bit slower, but towards the end of the year really came on. I'm hoping Luke Lachey fires right away though.
Yeah, for sure. Wide receiver prospects. So, obviously when Calvin Johnson came out, that dude was like the fucking
Madden creative player.
yeah. He was just fucking insane, man. I really liked AJ Brown coming out. That was one of the guys I was like, man, this is one of the guys that I was really big on.
That's good, man, because I missed on him. I wasn't too high on him. Not even for the landing spot. I just wasn't as high.
Yeah, that wide receiver draft, because that was N'Keal Harry, Metcalf, and A.J. Brown and Debo. That was one of those, like, kind of like the running backs are this year. Like, everybody had a different number one.
Different dude.
I think,
right.
yeah.
Fucking Hakeem Butler was people's number ones, right?
Well,
like
yeah, it's
some
Matt Waldman, greatest receiver I've ever scouted.
Well, it was not just Waldman, though, but a lot of people had Hakeem Butler up there. I liked Hakeem Butler. I don't know if he was number one. But
I thought he was decent, but then when he fell to round 4, I was like, eh.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good on this one. I would say for tight end, the one that I thought was going to be a fucking god was Kellen Winslow Jr.
He was very, very good, though, for a while.
For like the first year or two, and then
Then
then he got the motorcycle accident and had all those microfracture surgeries, which you never even hear about microfracture surgeries anymore.
We used to hear about him all the time, right? Like it was a big
now-
NBA thing, and then NFL had some, and then I've never heard of one since.
Yeah, I haven't either. So I don't know if the technology changed for that or whatever, but Kellen Winslow Jr., I thought that guy was going to be an absolute smash there at tight end. Vernon Davis, and he had a pretty decent career. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't start off great. So yeah, I was always intrigued by those like super athletic tight ends that would come in. Wide receivers, yeah, AJ Brown, Calvin Johnson come to mind. I'm trying to think if there's any. I'm sure there's more wide receivers that I thought were just going to be absolute fucking monsters coming in and didn't work out. I did like Big Mike Williams, the one that went to the Lions. Obviously, the Lions drafted 3 wide receivers in the first round 3 years in a row. So it was Charles Rogers, who ended up fading out of the league after like 2
Alcohol
years.
problems.
Yeah. He faded out, and then there was Big Mike Williams, who they took, and then Roy Williams was the next year. So,
And then not too long after that, Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, and they bamboozled the Browns on the Roy Williams trade. The Browns traded up 1 spot and gave up a second-round pick to get Kellen Winslow, and the Lions weren't even going to take Kellen Winslow, so they got a free second-round pick to move down 1 spot and got Roy Williams. So.
Who is that? Who's the tight end that Eric Ebron? Eric Ebron. I really liked him coming out too, and he never really.
You know what? If you look back at his stats, like they were actually pretty damn good. They weren't as terrible as you think. He reminds me of what Noah Fant is right now. A lot of people think Noah Fant sucks, but hey, Noah Fant was still young and he was fucking killing it. He's had some really good years, like 65 catches, 700 yards for a tight end. That's really good. Like, it's not terrible. And Ebron was kind of the same way. Like, yeah, he wasn't some monster, like Travis Kelce catching 90 balls, 1,000 yards or anything. But Eric Ebron had a pretty solid career, especially that 1 year with the Colts. He signed a second contract with the Colts. Didn't he have like a 13 touchdown season with the Colts?
He did his first year with the Colts. Yep, 25 years old.
Yeah. And he did that 25 years old. That's his second contract. That's the same thing that's happening with Noah Fant right now. So don't give up hope on Noah Fant either.
Kellen Winslow, man, he had some years, man. Second year in the league, 89 catches, 875. His third year in the league, 82 catches, 1,100 yards. Kellen Winslow. Must have been injured in his 4th year with Cleveland. His first year, though, second contract with Tampa at age 26, 77 for 884.
Yeah. He got hurt on a onside kick against Dallas, and I think that's where the injury is.
It started.
Yeah, he broke his leg or something, and I remember it was against Dallas, and he broke his leg, and it was on a fucking onside kick, like recovery or something.
Ugh.
And he broke his leg or something. That's where the downfall started. And then he got on the motorcycle and wrecked the motorcycle and all that. But him and Braylon Edwards, those are growing up. Those are him and Derek Anderson just had that one magical year. But
you want to talk about wide receiver prospects? I love Braylon Edwards.
Yeah, I didn't because he was from fucking Michigan, but
that's fair. I'm not even a big Michigan fan, but I love Braylon Edwards.
Player.
Wearing number 1, which I also think like it should be outlawed. You have to be a dynamite wide receiver to wear number 1 in Michigan. Like, period. Sorry, Roman Wilson, you didn't deserve that. But I love Braylon Edwards so much that I named my daughter Braylon. Now, spell it a little bit different, right, to make it more girly, but that's how much I love Braylon Edwards coming out, man. I was like, I gotta get a kid named Braylon. Right. Yep.
I did not know that about you. That's interesting.
So then it fits that Braylon Allen now coming out for this class. So we got another Braylon.
Just change it over. There you go.
I should get her a jersey that just says Braylon on it. Make it Wisconsin with Braylon Allen's number on it. Yeah. There you go. She'll never know the difference. She'll think it's personalized for her.
Braylon goes to the Eagles this year.
Oh, don't tease me.
Oh, man, that's good. All right, well, we've gone a little longer than I expected, but hey, it's all good stuff for wide receivers and tight ends. Next week, I'll have Fizzle on. We'll look over some of these mock drafts, getting closer to the draft day here. And then I'll have a special guest on the morning of draft day. That episode will come out on draft day, so that'll be pretty cool. Obviously, we're going to have our South Harmon live stream for the draft all 3 days. That's going to be coming out. We'll put out some more info on that on tweets and stuff here coming up. We're gonna have some giveaways and all that good stuff too. So make sure you guys come and check us out on draft day. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. I'll actually get the link this time. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, you will, man. You're invited for sure. I can definitely tell you we finalized it
Okay.
for day one giveaways.
Oh, okay.
We were giving away a Drake May photo, signed photo, a Xavier Worthy signed metal card, which is fucking sick. I really wanted to keep that, but Denzel Perryman, Houston Texans signed mini helmet, and what was this other one that I had here? Oh, Jordan Davis signed Eagles jersey, and the creme de la creme on day one, the big one, a full-size, authentic Drew Bledsoe New England Patriots that I won from our partners, Ultimate Autographs.
Hell yeah.
Signed sh.it. Signed shit. Go check it out. Use promo code Harmon15 for 15% off as well.
Hell yeah. So that'll be cool. We'll have a bunch of giveaways. We're gonna have giveaways all 3 days as well, I believe, too, right?
We would do giveaways day 2, and if we get enough people tuning in on day 3, if you're that big of a degen, I'll come up with some shit. Don't worry. I got a few things back here. Yeah, you can kind of see it. There's the Zay Flowers mini helmet. There's a Tyreek one back there. You know, I got some personal stuff. Maybe if we get enough audience on day 3, you want to degen out with us, I might feel frisky. I'll be pretty drunk and hungover that day too. So, you know, that's a perfect time to get at me to like give all my shit away.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, that is going to be it for episode 37 here. I'm Eric Vanek. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Vanek NFL. Follow the show at America's Game Pod, at South Harmon FF on YouTube and Twitter as well. Follow us there. We're always posting our shows on there. Mike, you got anything before we get out of here?
Nah, Eric, good stuff as always. Good talking about it, and I can't wait for the draft. Can't wait for the stream. Can't wait to find out where all these rookies I took in these 20 fucking pre-NFL rookie drafts like a psychopath
crazy.
are going. Hey, it's only half my leagues, Eric. Only half. I got another half to do after.
You talked me into getting all these orphans. I'm like, oh, yeah, this would be cool. And then I found that they're all pre-NFL draft. I'm like, fuck.
Welcome in. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. We'll be able to talk about it together on draft night. Like, oh, I fucking hit. I hit.
Yeah. Definitely not something I love doing, but I got a little comfortable with it. So just fucking hope and pray. Like,
let's go, buddy. You'll be fine.
Hopefully my rankings are good. So
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Me too. So, all right, guys, that is it for this week. We will see you next week. Have a good one.
See y'all.
Thank you.